Hello, everybody. I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. And today we're not playing Koi, but we're also not playing the Buffy the Vampire Slayer theme song, either from first and second season or from third season onward. I think, as many people tend to favorite uh, with their favorite television show introduction sequences, that they totally messed it up when they remade it. Anyways. Um, Yes, so all you four-star Mary fans out there you go. Um, so Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This was a TV show back in the 90s, if you didn't know. All, like, two people who didn't know about it. Um, Based on the 1992 movie, which is one of my favorite kitschy bad movies of all time. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the TV show, was one of my absolute favorites. This was my fandom. This was my first fandom, and you know you never forget your first. So, uh, this is, not shockingly, a tie-in novel. And I have a thing about tie-in novels, because I've said this before. Tie-in novels, tie-in novels are just like fan fiction. They're just that some lucky person has managed to get paid to write fan fiction, and somebody signed off on it as being not too far distant from the actual show. Uh, so Christopher Golden and Nancy Holder are actually two of the better authors of Buffy tie-in novels. I'll be getting around to other Buffy tie-in novels at some point. By the way, I want to stave off any speculation that I'm doing this as a Halloween thing. I actually just got around to doing this book because this was the book that I grabbed this week to do. Um, on the Thursday closest to Halloween, but before Halloween, I'll do a thing that might potentially have Halloweeny type connections, but I don't tend to have a lot of holiday connected fiction on my shelf. I have really fairly little stuff that can in any way really be linked properly to any holiday. So, Buffy the Vampire Slayer aside, yes, of course, I could do, you know, all the Thursdays this month with Buffy and stuff, but then I don't have Buffy books to do later, and I have to turn it into a series, and I'm only going to be doing one series at a time, and that series is Cat Who. And you'll notice, this is the rambling part. You know how I call these bookish ramblings? This is the part where I'm rambling and not actually talking about the book, or the TV series. Um, for anyone who's wondering who these people are because you don't recognize them, Alyson Hannigan is most recently known for being on How I Met Your Mother. Uh, Sarah-Michelle Gellar is known for being in a lot of bad movies and also a remake of The Ring. And David Boreanaz, now that he's older and less gosh darn despicably handsome, and is now just pretty darn handsome, is on Bones. Anyways, uh, but back then, this was, as I said, my favorite show, so I bought the tie-in novels. Um, and they don't really stand up to time. A lot of them aren't great books, as happens with most tie-in novels, but these books hold the particular affection for me of being from my favorite show, and you can't ever really discount that as a reason for liking something. Because, of course, when you love a particular TV show or a particular movie, um, just speak to all the Star Wars fans who have read the Timothy Zahn and everybody else collection of follow-ups to Star Wars, um, that you just want more of these favorite characters of yours. And when the movie's over, when the TV show goes off the air, either for, ever or just for its hiatus break, or if you're watching one of those English shows that have those mini series rather than in a standardized annual series the way we do here in North America. Um, this is one of the places that you can look to find more of those characters and more of that place and more of those situations. So these books are just more episodes of Buffy for me. And so, of course, I love them. And they hold the affection of nostalgia, and I suppose I should probably actually talk about this. Um, one of the issues, uh, one of the things in this is one of those books that I suspect couldn't have been done on the show because they didn't have the budget for it. Because in the course of this book, the museum near Sunnydale, the kids go on a class trip, on a field trip to the museum, which has a special Japanese exhibit on, and Willow winds up getting possessed by a vampire, which, if you know anything about how Buffy the Vampire Slayer vampires work, is really kind of weird. But it's a vampire sorcerer, and the vampire sorcerer decides that he is going to possess Willow because Willow cut her hand on this sword that he had been trapped in for centuries, and he manages to take over Willow's body, does the vampire Chirayoju, and then she starts to, or rather he in Willow's body, sort of wanders around wreaking havoc, upsetting people. Willow actually goes through one of those only partially possessed periods where a person is really, really short-tempered and not themselves, but, hasn't actually been properly possessed yet. Anyway, so Chirayoju plans to take over the world, as one does. You get trapped in a sword for a couple millennia, and then you break out of the sword and take over the body of a person and try to take over the world. This is just standard operating procedure. I mean, that's what I would do. And so we get Willow's possessed, and throughout this, when Chirayoju is sort of being open about possession, there's this sort of magical overlay of his face over Willow's, and it's the kind of thing that you need good special effects to do, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, in its first season, had no budget, and at the end of the second season, it had more of a budget, but, you can see a lot of scenes in those first two seasons, and it isn't until the third that you even start to have that kind of possibility. But this book came out basically after the second season. And I think it was set. I think it was set before the big horrifying set piece in the middle when Angel lost his soul in the second season, but I think it came out after that, and so it's kind of in that moment when this story really couldn't have been told. The other part is that you have a massive crouching tiger, hidden dragon fight to the death between Buffy, who winds up possessed by Chirayoju at the end because she basically makes a deal. She'll give her body over to the vampire sorcerer, and the vampire sorcerer lets Willow go. Only Xander gets possessed by the Sano, the Japanese mountain king, and Sano is determined to kill Chirayoju, and so there's a big fight to the death, and it's all very, like I said, crouching tiger, hidden dragon, giant sword, and all kinds of stuff, and frankly, I suspect Nicholas Brendan wouldn't have been up to the wire work, and I'm not sure that Sarah-Michelle Gellar would have either. So, this is one of those stories that really falls into, we can't show this on television. Not that, we can't show it on television because it's offensive, but because we can't do that. Physically, literally. So So, anyways, Willow gets possessed and starts gathering an army, and then they find out that Willow is possessed, and Giles has to go on a very lengthy research hunt. And one of the nice things about this book is that it actually, we get to hear more about Giles's research than we normally do. Because on the show, Giles's research is very often presented as, there are books, we have read books, and then we are handed the answer as a fait accompli. Giles did research in his magical, mystical, reading booksy voodoo way, and boom, there is answers. But here we actually get to see Giles making phone calls overseas to contact people who may have, looked at the information that he needs to give him a hint of where to look. You have him phoning a Japanese watcher who may have answers to questions that Giles needs answering. You have the look through one of the Watcher's diaries where Giles is able to actually use that to springboard himself into finding the information that he needs. This is one of those lower decks things, the little man behind the curtain things, the stuff that we don't see in an episode because you need to keep the episode moving, because it's not exciting viewing. But when you put it in book form, you can make a hunt for information exciting in a way that watching somebody flip rapidly through a book and then scamper off, grab another book, and zip rapidly through that one, you can actually make that interesting for a reader. And so, that's the other thing about tie-in novels, is that thing where you get to see parts of a show and parts of characters that you don't and can't see when you're watching the actual show. And so I very, very much enjoy that aspect of it. And I, of course, enjoy getting more Buffy, because that's the thing. I can't recommend tie-in novels to people who aren't fans of a show. So, if you never liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or if you haven't really seen it, and by seen it, I mean the TV show starring Sarah-Michelle Gellar, not the movie from 1992 starring Kristy Swanson. Was it Kristy Swanson? I don't remember. I'll put a note. There should be a note showing up on the screen any second now saying who was actually in that. But it's very, very different from the TV show. Not in my opinion, not worse than the TV show, but a very, very fundamentally different experience with a kind of a fundamentally different point, and frankly, at times a lot funnier. But anyways, if you don't know Buffy, then you have to have watched the show a little bit first just to get a feel for who these people really are. But that being said, this isn't a bad tie-in novel. It's not bad in terms of giving you a quick glance. So hey, if you like books better than TV shows, maybe you should try this tie-in novel and see if you like the TV show. And so that's really kind of everything. I'll probably talk more about Buffy in a future ramble when I have another Buffy tie-in novel. Yeah, so, fans, it's a thing. And so I hope you'll come by next week when we'll be doing the next book in the Cat Who series, which I don't remember the title of, but, it's coming because series and stuff. See you next week.